the I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Garrett Owen, dude, welcome back, man. You were at the old studio, so
that's right.
Times have changed
in Deep Ellum. But
yeah,
what was funny about that, the Deep Ellum, and that I think we did a Saturday night then, but it was deserted because it was like peak pandemic.
Yeah, it's been a while,
still,
man.
Yeah.
These interviews go in and out of my life so quick sometimes that I forget like a year or two has passed. But
I'm sorry we haven't. And kind of, I'm bummed we haven't just run into each other somewhere
right?
somehow. Right?
I know. But, dude, the new album, so many questions about it. Memoriam by Garrett Owen. First of all, before we jump in on the music, talk to me about this picture on the cover. Because, well, it's who took the, not the photograph that you're holding, but who did the artwork for the whole album?
Well, Brendan Blaney
okay.
is a Dallas photographer. He's also the boyfriend of Wesley Delgado, that she runs merch and does lots of grunt work for State Fair Records.
Yeah,
and she's just a good friend of mine, so she nominated him to.
Well, they nailed it, man. Just the color composition and everything, like it's really beautiful. It's just a great cover.
Thanks. I think it's pretty neat.
Covers are so hard to nail, right? Because
yeah,
it's like, you want it to express your music, you want it to express you, but you also want it to be interesting, and it's just hard.
And I feel so guilty about how much of my face is already on my stuff. And so
yeah.
I would like it to not be my face on anything I do for the rest of my life. I made massive efforts to not put my face on in posts about the tour. I was trying to take pictures of things, but I've gotten in, and I had this idea for a while that anytime I did videos, as long as I didn't sing in the video, I wouldn't put my face in it.
Okay.
But then that went out the window too, for some reason, and now my face is in more social media than I want it to be. I
just talked to a stand-up comic friend of mine. He wants to create merch, and it's hard for stand-up comics to create merch, you know. They always want to put a joke or something. And I was trying to explain to him, he had these great headshots that he uses. And I was like, man, we should throw your picture on there. And it was the same struggle. He's like, I don't know. Do people want to see my face? Is that not egotistical? And I think the artist is always worried about that. But I think the listeners or fans of anything, I think they get curious about the individual. And so I think it's kind of a double edge. But I get where you're coming from. But talk to me about the picture. So you're holding a picture of someone on the cover of your album. Who is this person?
So that's my great-grandfather.
No way.
On my Japanese side.
Holy cow. What a great... How do you still have that photograph? It looks like it's in great shape, by the way. You said it's your great-grandpa?
Mm-hmm.
Who kept it so pristine?
I must have been Grandma.
Yeah, she did a great job.
But, yeah, she had a photo of him kind of right when you walked in her doorway in her house in Savannah, Georgia. Because my Japanese grandmother lived really the majority of, or pretty much all of the second half of her life, or from like late 30s, I think, till she moved in with me in Savannah, Georgia.
Wow.
And so on this table that was kind of the first thing you see when you walk in her doorway was a picture of him. And so all through any of my time spent there, the first thing I saw when I walked in her house was always a picture of him.
Wow.
And on the way to that photo shoot, I really wasn't planning on using photos in front of my face. It's not really something that, people talk about as an album cover idea. But as I was getting ready to go to the photo shoot, I just started thumbing through boxes of her pictures, and that was the first one. And
wow.
I took two with me, but that was the first one I picked. And then I took another one where he's older and he's sitting with my great-grandmother.
Oh, wow.
And
it's
he's much prettier than her, which is funny.
It's a very powerful image. We there's a person locally, I think the name of their company is Fox Tintype, or maybe just, I can't remember exactly what it is. I'm messing it up. But we went up to the Double Wide. My wife saw it on Instagram, and he specializes in these types of photographs.
Yeah.
I can't even remember exactly what he's developing it on, but it's not film. It's like a plate that goes in there, and there's special chemicals. So the actual portrait ends up being, I don't know, maybe it's like a 4x6 or a little bit smaller, but like you have the plate, the picture, and that's it. And he made us a digital copy, but he's got the old, like really hot flash bulbs that come on real hard, and then it's a longer exposure, which it looks like this was probably similar, just because most of those old pictures of people, they don't smile because you're doing a longer exposure and it messes up. So anytime I see somebody with a stoic face like that in an old school picture, I wonder if it's that type of photography. But those pictures end up being so powerful because there's something about, even though it's older technology, those grays and whites just capture more,
In the way...
But I wonder if it was taken that way or if it's just another style of black and white photo.
In the way that it... It's like he looks great, you can see him, but... There's not much definition on his face.
Right.
It's like there's this certain amount of like almost like I want to call it like bright out. Like the flash was so bright that it kind of whites out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The left side of his face is very bright. Right side of his face very dark.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's a very it's a dramatic image.
Well,
for someone who's just sitting still.
And you can tell he's like a very pretty man. Which is...
I mean, he could be confused for a woman in this picture, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Very, very good-looking guy.
Oh, multiple times on this tour, I had people ask me if that was a picture of my grandmother.
They're like, who's the lady? That's funny.
Because I would intro one of the songs with, like, this... I wrote this in the first year of taking care of my grandmother that had... My Japanese grandmother that had Alzheimer's and dementia. And then... Yeah, at least 4 people. Like, is that your grandma? That's
at least
actually her dad.
But at least they're listening, right? Like,
at least
they paid attention, man. Because that's a real hard. I imagine that's always difficult at shows. As you want people to be have fun and have a good time, but there's that fine line of being able to like really listen and absorb lyrics at a live show, especially if you're hearing it for the first time. Versus just the groove of a song, right?
And I realized after the fact that I gypped some people out of a better experience because that at one of these shows in particular, I'm probably going to end up saying like something less than fantastic about somebody at this show other than myself.
Okay.
So I won't say where it was.
Yeah.
Or name anybody if I even knew their name. But I think I kind of robbed some people of a better show because one of these shows in particular, just the environment was so not remotely. I don't need things to actually be like a full-on intimate environment to.
Well, what was wrong with it? What was the stuff that wasn't working?
Well, I mean,
because I get very
dudes working in the place behind the bar were roughhousing and wrestling with each other all throughout my set and throwing paper plates at each other and just making a ruckus. Oof. And there were mostly it was I felt like the staff was actually disrespecting me and my headliner. I felt like the staff at that place was disrespecting us as people from the moment we got there. And so that made it so that I withdrew throughout my set. And I continued to just play my songs.
Is it because you're up on stage and you see that? Like while you're playing, are you noticing it and you're getting distracted by that? Or is it just something you noticed beforehand and you're thinking, it's getting on my nerves?
I found it emotionally offensive. So I withdrew you learn over the years that there is an art to figuring out where in the set you can put your personal stories and how you can kind of, maybe it's not a joke, but you can deliver the story in such a way that there's something kind of like a punchline. And then as soon as that lands, you start playing the song. And I just robbed that audience of all of that extra little bit of what could be charming or what could have been endearing.
Yeah.
And I left it all in my backpack. Somehow
there's a lot, but that's the science of music.
Because I felt bothered by these dudes behind the bar.
I will say, in my experience, I think a lot of that is happening because of a post-COVID environment. I think we had a lot of great venues all around the country, right? That had things running really well. When they got hit with COVID, I think a lot of their great staff had to make career changes, right? This is an assumption of mine. Just from even locally, some of the places that we used to go that were really great that now maybe suffer a little. It seems like that's what happened. It seems like they had staff turnover, and when they were hiring new people, it wasn't these veterans. You know, like a lot of places you would go to, and there would be people who'd been working at that venue for a while, so they knew how to make that place work really well. And I think post-COVID, you know, people quit, found new careers, had to do what they had to do, and maybe a lot of those people didn't come back. You know, so I think you have this new generation of people who are trying to still learn what makes that perfect environment. You know, because it starts the moment that guest hits, like the person who's checking your ID at the front door. It starts right there with how the vibe of that building is going to be, right? If you are coming to a show and you just went through an area like, you know, let's say like Deep Ellum, where you got to find parking, you got to pay for parking, you might walk a block or two to get to the venue. You're already a little, all right, that was a little stressful. I'm ready to go, you know. Yeah. So when you hit that front door, if they're like, hey, guys, what's going on? You know, welcome. Hey, we just got to check your IDs real quick. You know, who you here to see tonight? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. No, they're coming on soon. Go get a drink. What you guys know where everything is in here? Like that person versus the IDs. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It starts right at the door. And then the next person is whoever's checking tickets. The next person is the bartender. It all makes that, and that's before we even talk about things, you know, lights, stage, ceilings. What is the ambiance that you can control there? So many things go into making a club feel cozy and receptive to that music that's about to play. Even if it's big or small, it doesn't matter. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a listening room. You know, big places like the House of Blues in Granada, they can figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, you can find ways to feel good about doing your art pretty much anywhere. I mean, there can be such a thing as too big when there's, you know, this giant open space in front of the stage and there's no incentive for anybody to get up close, and so then you feel like you're trying to do this heartfelt thing across a football field of distance. So I mean, but even that, it's like you go ahead and do it. You say the things that you kind of know work as stories, and then you can still get the better version of yourself across, almost kind of regardless of environment. But I realized now in hindsight that I kind of forgot that I was part of the service to them, to this audience. Yeah. And I let my feelings get in the way, and I didn't put on the show I should have.
Well, I mean, you know, that happens, right? Live and learn. But also, venues should be thinking about those things, about how when you're excited to have performers there performing, it rubs off on performers. When it looks like they're disconnected from what's happening that night also, that might rub off on you as well. I mean, I don't know. There's all sorts of inner workings. Like maybe you got a terrible manager, maybe you hate working this job or something. But at the core of it, if you work at a place like a music venue, you need to be the type of person who loves working at a music venue. If you're there for money, that's a bad job. I mean, you should get paid. You should get paid well, right? But your first thing should be, I love music. I love live shows. I want to be a part of the fabric of this community that puts on live shows, right? I mean, it's a special, privileged place if you work at one of those. Even if you're a bartender at a music venue, you have the ability to make shows phenomenal just by your bartending service, right? You're just the ticket teller. Your attitude right there, checking tickets, putting markers on hands. You start that show's vibe right there. And it should always be someone who's like, I love checking tickets. I love doing the hand stamps here at this venue. The fact that I get to work here is awesome. I mean, it's a cool job. So I could see how it'd make you a little disconnected if you feel like people don't have that kind of excitement, you know?
Well, I mean, there was kind of, throughout this little run, and it went by so fast.
You said it was 13 shows or 11 shows in 13 days?
13 days, and it went by so fast. It went by so fast that I can't even remember what my hotel room looked like in Costa Mesa. Yeah. I realized that everything...
Where were y'all going through, by the way? What were some of the stops?
Yeah. I'll just pull it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can recite everywhere.
And you said this was with David Ramirez? Mm-hmm. That's exciting stuff, man.
there was a little bit of everything as far as kind of, like things that had like the small theater vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were kind of what I was describing a minute ago was where this bar for some reason decided to book this basically sad bastard singer-songwriter event, and then nobody working at this place seemed to want to have anything to do with that. And
yeah, man, that happens.
but I won't name the town.
We're just gonna give them the credit. Maybe they just had an off night. Maybe maybe they had some fill-ins. That wasn't even the normal staff. Who knows, right?
No, I had to go back the next morning. Same people.
Oh well, that sucks.
Because I left my notebook there,
Mm.
and so I had to go back the next morning before heading to the next
Of
stop.
course, the place that frustrates you is the one you would leave your notebook at and have to go back to.
Yeah, and then I felt like a total, forgive the French, I felt like a total chode going back in there because I had left. When I had left, I hadn't given anybody any attitude, but I hadn't done my usual round of thank yous.
Right.
And
You were making a point to let them know I was a little bothered. I get it. I
didn't do my usual round of thank yous, but I didn't do an extra round of like I hate yous either.
Of course. Yeah.
I just kind of left without
You're just doing
saying
the Irish goodbye. Yeah, I got you.
But at so many of these venues, I do remember, seeing people work their asses off and seeing people, the way they interacted with the audience members I thought was cool, or the way the staff at these places handled themselves was great. So there were places where I went around to several staff members and just said, I appreciate what you guys did tonight. Thanks for having us. Or like, hey, I think it looked like you worked really hard tonight. Thank you. Can I tip you? I don't, because I also, on this run, I didn't do any drinking, and I almost bought nothing from the venues that we played at.
Yeah.
So I did occasionally make a point to tip folks that were working there because I wasn't,
you weren't running a tab.
Yeah, I wasn't contributing
That's
to
nice.
their phone bill payment by drinking or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I, at some of these places, I would just find somebody, be like, "Hey, can I tip you a little bit?" Because I'm not drinking right now.
Yeah. So. And you're right, man. Those people, they are the difference between a great show and a mediocre show. You got the tour dates there?
Yeah, so people can guess which show I'm talking about. Or if you have time to travel the entire West Coast.
Yeah. So it was a West Coast run.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the let's forget the negative ones. What were some of the venues that you thought were like just great experiences on that list?
Soda Bar in San Diego.
Okay.
Was a top one.
What do you think made it so good?
Staff.
Yeah.
Staff was.
What type of venue is it?
Staff were awesome. I mean, it was more of a club.
Okay.
It was kind of a club
so
vibe.
Like a couple hundred people fit in there kind of place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Where, if you maxed out standing capacity, I would say, man, I would think, 200, you're talking crammed in there like sardines.
Those are my favorite clubs. Those clubs are incredible.
Well, yeah, it made for this like really intimate thing.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, David Ramirez the next day said that he can barely remember seeing an audience of that size like behave in the way that they behaved during my set, where it was dead silence, but it was never awkward. It was just that they were emotionally involved,
actually listening,
and that's why
that's exciting.
That's when you say like, what was a highlight? That's the first show that comes to mind, because I had more people come up to me after that show saying they cried during my set than any single show I've ever had.
Now, I've never been to this venue, but when you're talking about how great the staff is, when I've been to venues that size that have great staff and all, and other things that you can tell they care about their shows, the other thing I think it accidentally does is I think it trains your customers. I think you end up getting a better concert goer when you pay. So I think you end up training them like the show has started. We're paying attention now, right? And I think when you have that great staff that pays attention to those details, you just accidentally get really great clientele. I think the people who would normally talk through sets and have a bad time end up just not going to those venues. because of that.
I mean, I hope
you know,
so.
it's like, I think if you treat yourself like a professional, I think your fans at those local venues that have recurring fans who are willing to just check out new people, I think they become better fans, better concert goers, you know.
And I do feel like, in that respect, the most hit or miss shows in the world are when you try and put on an intimate thing at just a bar that does not usually do that kind of thing.
Right, yeah, because the guests are used to coming in, having a drink, catching up with somebody, high-fiving. Oh, man, what the fuck you been doing lately? Blah, blah. You know, while you're up there plucking away, trying to have some dynamics. You can't just play everything loud.
Yeah, dude. I mean...
You know, so I got to make a live recording for Brave Little How.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, I'll give you one when you leave. But that was my biggest fear, because when we recorded that, it was at this little cabin called Big Thicket on White Rock Lake. And it's a place anyone can rent out. You can do like a birthday party or something there, right? And literally, just from driving by it for a couple of years, we were looking for an intimate venue to just... At the time, they wanted to record like a song or two. And I was convincing them, let's put on a show. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I would love to turn this into like a live record, you know? But I didn't tell them that. I wanted to see kind of how it would go down. And so the way we recorded it was just with all kind of, not full on like ambient miking, but we put the mics around the rooms. We didn't direct mic anyone very seriously. We wanted to be recorded like you were sitting in that room. So I was a little terrified that we invited, 50 people to this cabin, even though they're friends of these people and friends of, the show and people that I kind of know. I was just worried, man, somebody's going to get too drunk or something. There's going to be a lot of background noise, because we recorded it, as it was in the room.
That's crazy.
And then I was so impressed. The level of etiquette from the people that were at the show was like off the charts, man. Huh. Little things.
When did y'all make this?
This was 2019, I think, right before the pandemic, maybe.
Okay, wow.
I feel like it was like December 2019 or something. I remember it was a Friday the 13th, and I think it was in December. I'd have to double check it, but no, there was a squeaky, like, how the old school screen doors, the wooden screen doors, had that squeaky spring. There was even one of those where if someone wanted to step outside and like smoke a cigarette or something, they waited until the song was done, and then you just heard and then they would finish their cigarette and stand by the door and listen to the song and wait for that song to end before they came back in. They were waiting to pop beer cans open between songs. I was just floored at how I didn't have to think about it at all. Everybody was like, we are ready to watch this show and pay attention. It was incredible, So I can imagine if you had a room of 200 people doing that at this venue you've never been to, that's got to be an awesome experience.
Well, there weren't that many people at this show. But,
okay. All right.
But, so, it wasn't a sold-out show. But
it
was a place that I think capacity-wise, I think you could cram 200 people in there. It would feel packed. But I think...
On this run, was it just you and your acoustic up there?
I took 3 guitars.
Okay.
But they were all 3 acoustics.
Oh, all right.
But I needed so many because this new record has more like experimental tuning stuff than any, not just than any I've done in the past.
Yeah.
It's my only record that has like probably 4 tunings on it.
Oh, wow. Well, I remember from, our previous conversation the last time that you have a deep well of guitar learning experience that you like to pull from.
I'm a guitar nerd.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm excited to hear you found some more ways to kind of push your own playing,
No, there's one I'm really excited to make a video out about, even though it's the darkest song on here.
Which one?
Dead on New Year's Day.
Yeah. That is a darker one.
But I found some in this tuning in C A D F sharp A D. I only recently I decided to figure out what notes am I stacking on top of each other in full on, like, kind of in ringing out chord form that I can't in standard. So I sat there like making the chords on the CAD-FAD guitar and then finding the notes for each chord in standard. And what I found was that, like, I was able to make all these weird, pretty dissonances happen that you basically cannot make happen in standard tuning unless you play some of them as single notes on the same string. So it's like these notes in standard can only occur kind of one at a time and notes side by side each other.
Is it a reach issue? Like you just physically can't reach that note?
That's part of it. It's like you couldn't reach that note on an adjacent string unless your fingers are longer than what I'm doing right here.
Yeah.
Unless you would need you'd need like Jimi Hendrix or John Mayer size hands to even make like this 2-note,
and you're trying to put it in a chord
interval thing happen, and then to put that on top of another bass note on top of that is almost impossible. So like for me in this alternate tuning, it allows for these intervals to be stacked on top of each other that are so linear to each other in standard that they basically can't occur in standard. Just the amount of stretching involved is just nuts. But because I was trying to do it, and I was like, oh, so that's why I've never heard this in a sound chordal before. And in fact, it's like partially chordal and really part linear, but that tuning allows you to let it ring out in chord form.
So when you were experimenting with that tuning, I'm trying to just get into your head as a guitar player a little bit, because first of all, when I play guitar, I'm just kind of a slave to standard tune.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't experiment that much, but also I think
me too. I mean, when I'm in standard,
the few times I've changed tuning, I remember. I think what is it? Is Keith Richards in like open G or something?
And I think he's big on open E and G. Yeah.
Okay, and then I think Jack White. No, not Jack White. Somebody else. Maybe it was Jack White. I think they did like an open A or something on a couple songs, and I was just trying to mess around with slide and kind of see how I felt about that. And for those songs, I was kind of interested in that. But then as soon as I was done with those songs, I was like, okay, back to the other stuff, back to the normal tuning. So what I wanted to ask was, when you do a tuning like this, because you have it in your mind of how you want to hear these certain notes and phrases, do you then go, I'm going to leave this in this tuning, for a couple months and just play around as much as possible with it, or are you kind of over it after that?
Well, that's kind of how the way I even finished that particular song, Dead on New Year's Day, was just by leaving that particular guitar in that tuning for years.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll leave it.
Yeah, that particular guitar had to stay in that tuning for a long time. So every time I played that guitar, I only had that tuning. So it kind of makes you develop a vocabulary in this tuning that is not standard. So, and I've I've got a little bit of that working now with Open G. What am I talking about? Dagad. Really, I feel like Open G might actually be the most limiting tuning, so I only have one song in that tuning. But in these other tunings, I think I'm probably gonna keep writing in those tunings, because I'm kind of finding things enough to have it be that there's a bit of an actual vocabulary being built up there, and that's the most difficult thing probably with any instrument, is like having an actual vocabulary.
So you're approaching it just from the sounds you want to hear. Yeah, that you can't get in standard tuning.
And then I'm finding out after the fact, like, what is this? What is it? What is this? How does this translate to standard? And then I'm going, oh, this would be impossible in standard. That's why this is useful.
If you write something in that tuning, do you ever see if you can play it in standard anyway, just to see if you're tricking yourself that you need this tuning?
Well, that's what I was doing. And what I found was that the stretching involved from chord to chord would make it the clunkiest and the most time. It would make it really time consuming. It would make it so I would literally have to pause like 3 seconds just to even rap. and then even then, it's like, well, no, this just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's not going to flow. It's not intuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, guitar playing should still be fun and enjoyable. It shouldn't just be a challenge the whole time.
I like the idea of writing stuff kind of just for exercise sake, and I've done that. I'm really proud of Rosemary and Thieves as a track and as like a compositional piece. Yeah, I feel like it draws heavily on like actually the classical music that I've listened to and tried to absorb over the years, and like the few classical pieces I've probably only ever learned complete, maybe a dozen, like real legit either Spanish classical or kind of maybe they're like Baroque pieces translated to guitar tab.
Are the
but I feel like that's one I'm real proud of, even though it started out just kind of being, how complicated can I make this? Or how complicated, or like what if I try to write something that would make me a better player, and so it feels really difficult now. But then eventually, after like 4 months of playing that, then I went, oh, I can make an actual song out of this. This does actually work as a vocal melody. It feels kind of clunky now, but it can actually work as a vocal melody, even though I wrote it just to be this kind of weird chord melody piece that has like 14 changes in the verse, which is a lot for like a folk song. But
yeah, I love hearing you talk about that, because I'm about to be 40, and I've played guitar since I was 14 or 15. I'd have to really think about when I started, and I feel like I know how to play a guitar, right? I mean, there's people who are better, there's people who are worse, but I can pick it up, play something I enjoy, have a good time with it, and I feel like I have connected with that instrument where I don't really have to think about things anymore. But I've always been more of that kind of casual feel player. I'm going to listen to some songs, try to work it out a little by ear, and part of me in my 40s wants to become just a strict, like, scale running, learn everything I can to the most ridiculous complication, to see just what limit, because you think like, man, I've been playing since I was 15. That's so a couple decades, and it's just,
I started on my 14th birthday. Right. I'm 39. Yeah.
But then I think, okay, if the average person lives to be 80 years old these days, maybe even longer, you mean to tell me I still potentially have 40 years of playing in front of me that I could just have an incredible time? Because we got to see Willie Nelson play at the Granada Theater a couple years ago.
Oh, boy.
It was incredible. And I forget how old he is. But I'm telling you, if you
That's all I think about when you mention Willie Nelson.
But if you just close your eyes while you're at that show and you're listening to him play, he's still as connected as ever with that instrument.
I literally think he's the palest raisin. He's a full-on raisin now.
But I would notice, when I would open my eyes and look at his hands that are playing, they're an old man's arthritic hands that have to be struggling to play some still. But he's still up there. And I was thinking, I've got so much time left to play that I want to see just how technical maybe I can get with playing, to then strip all that away and see how fun does playing become once you have all these new skills. Because I was listening to I was listening to a comic talk about music.
You could do what I do and just sit around and feel bad because Matt Tedder's out there. He's like,
well, there's always somebody better, right?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, not from that standpoint of competition. Just I was listening to a comic talk about music, how they couldn't understand how.
I love you, Matt. By the way, you're my favorite.
Matt's incredible
guitar player in the world. So
well, this comic was talking about how guys like Matt. It's like, how do they even do that? And
we started playing at 8, and he didn't stop.
Exactly. Well, and then that's what that comic kind of came to the realization of was, they're when they struggle, they're like when they're at home struggling, they're probably 5 times better than that. This is just him being natural on stage now because he's put all that time in, right? Just like yourself. You've nerded out on guitar for so many years that what you're playing on stage is the stuff that you don't really even think about anymore. That's just stuff you can blindly play. If we actually wanted to push your limits when you're at home on your couch by yourself, it gets even more complicated. And that's kind of where I feel like I want to get to is, okay, I think we're just going to get crazy technical, crazy complicated with practicing so that when I do just sit on the couch and pick it up 10 years from now.
You'll have a new simple.
Exactly.
Yeah,
a new simple is what I'm looking for.
And so, like, I kind of, at least for a minute, I found a new simple for a second. But it doesn't quite translate to that being like the new simple for all of my songs. And it feels like now I've reached this place where, well, shoot, now I'll have to pay for another set of master classes. Because to be totally honest, like, part of what was great about that period of taking care of my grandmother is I had a lot of dead time because she slept so much and she had sundowners. So a lot of times during the evening she would sleep, but there would still need to be somebody around just in case she got up and, decided to try and make ramen noodles when she doesn't know when a burner's on or off anymore, but she can still turn one on.
Yeah.
But she can't remember to turn one off. So that's where she was about like 6 months into taking care of her. She reached that point where I could no longer really, I'm not her dad, but I couldn't.
You're there for the emergencies, right?
Yeah.
If the smoke alarms start going off, you can move quickly enough to see what's happening and stop a serious problem.
So I couldn't allow her to like cook for herself anymore because that kind of stuff was starting to happen. But she was there. I would just stay in there and realize she'd left a burner on with with evaporated water in it for so long, and I would go okay, and then but the sundowners, you just sleep a ton, or you sleep when you shouldn't. So I had time, so I invested. I bought this. I bought this program. Actually, I'll just go ahead and say what it was. It was called Sonora. I think it was kind of overpriced for what it was, but but it gave me access to all these different video lessons or seminars. I could actually tune in.
Oh, like a live seminar. That's
and
fun.
they happened. They were like 6 a week. These different seminars with guys that teach super advanced guitar stuff at places like the Musicians Institute in LA, or guys that normally, you got to go to Berkeley to like get a private lesson with that guy. He teaches a seminar on this Sonora program every Thursday.
That's incredible.
Or something like that. Rob Capoletto, he was the one I did like when I was paying for this thing. I watched a lot of his seminars.
What was he doing that was really vibing with you that you wanted to keep coming back?
Well, he was a jazz guy.
Oh, okay.
And jazz is kind of the thing that I failed at in life, or one of the top things I failed at in life. There's a long list, but
man, jazz. Well, so that's part of me wanting to go on this technical journey and see what my limits are. Because is that me? Sorry.
There's like a safety
an
alert.
Amber Alert. Yeah, there's always something. Sorry about that.
That's fine. Well, I got it too. I thought I had disabled it.
This guitar player that I like, his name's Mike Tuck. He's an old friend.
Oh, listen to your episode. It's
fantastic.
Okay, yeah.
He's another one. He's
a monster.
He's a phenomenal guitar player, and a lot of his professional career started out when he flunked out of the UT jazz program, or the UTD jazz program up in Denton. He went there. He
So in my my failing at jazz, I have all these defenses for like why I failed at it, and that it's like, well, to tell you the truth, I actually learned a lot in my jazz studies. I just never felt like I was going to be good enough to get on stage with a guy like Pat Martino or Mike Stern, these great jazz players. I was never going to get to a point where I could improvise at the level that they can improvise. Because the point in my mind with it was to get to a place where you could improvise like what feel like emotionally invested sentences, but on your instrument over chord progressions that are changing key, mode, scale, center every measure, or sometimes twice per measure.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to get to a point where you can become like a true communicator over something that complex. And so in truth, I feel like I learned a lot from trying to do it, but I 2 years in at studying jazz at a community college, I just felt like I'll be trying to get to I'm just trying to get to intermediate level.
Yeah.
And I'll be trying to do that for the rest of my life. I'm just trying to get to like feeling remotely decent at this.
But we were talking about
I'm okay with it being a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah.
Getting better at guitar, but with just one genre, come on.
You never know though. We were talking before the mics were on about how music, sometimes you got to find music at the right stages of your life. That I may hate this song right now, but then 3 years later I hear that song again. I'm like, why did I hate this? This song's incredible.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like that's how guitar playing is too. I feel like you might pick something up for a minute, hate it, I'm not good at it, and then maybe 3-4 years down the line, from all the other experiences that you've gone through, this version that you were struggling with just clicks now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it might be one of those things that you just revisit it every year or two and see what's happening.
Well, I think it's, I don't know, just improv is something.
You like controlling it, though.
Yeah, it's funny.
I know the way you write from talking to you last time. You know, you think about your writing thoroughly, and you make a lot of exact choices. But this is how I want this to go.
Yeah, and I wanted my improv to be that. I wanted my improv to feel like complete, like fully realized thoughts and sentences and things carefully, kind of to have it, to be able to improvise something that feels carefully composed.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't just obviously possibly a wild accident, but I wanted.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Yeah,
I think you only get through that by going through really terrible improv for a long time.
Yeah, and I just
by a lot of trial and error in front of people.
And in our jazz combo performances that happened when we did like a series of jazz combo performances at the end of each semester, it was clear. If I watched the videos of all those performances from kind of semester to semester to semester, and then finally when I quit to the last semester, there was improvement. I just couldn't believe how long it was going to take.
Yeah,
and so I dropped out, and then I did one more semester at that community college where I thought I was just going to be an English major, and even that didn't work out because I mean it's. To look at what I do or to what I'm trying to do, to look at it, it's clear that I like words and music.
Right. Yeah, so that would seem like a natural path, right?
But I didn't finish that either.
But I wonder a lot of those things. I mean, it's so tough, you know, because there's so many people who go to school with those same thoughts of I like these things, I want to be proficient at these things, so I'm going to study these things.
Right.
But
and then you put them in a class for them, and suddenly you just don't want to do it anymore.
I think it's hard with any type of writing, whether it's music, writing. I mean, I think they can give you a framework that's helpful, a really broad blueprint. But ultimately, I think it's your own individual experience and just how you're going to pick up and play that guitar every day over the next 10 years is different than everyone else, and your own little personal epiphanies. And the same way with writing, you know, if you want to become a writer, I mean, you pick your famous writer and however they did it. There's no way you're going to have that exact path. They can't say, well, here's what you need to do, then do this next. They had the same just kind of framework, and then it was their own experiences that led them to be great and their own choices through those experiences. So I think anytime you get into the arts, you know, having a class about how to do it, I think on the most basic level is extremely helpful. And then I think the only thing that's maybe valuable about it in addition to that would be gaining a knowledge of what's come before you. Right? So having an intelligent person who has understood the history of music or the history of writing to go, you know, Garrett, maybe you should check out this author, maybe you should check out this musician. The path you're going seems like, have you heard of this person before? And I think that's where that education is important, is exposing you to things. But making you better, I don't know, man. I don't know that a school can make you that much better. I think they just have to put you on a path and then be a good educator in terms of, you know, I can expose you to what I think might help you, but then you're on your own.
Yeah, I mean, so my favorite parts of studying jazz were when we would do the group listening classes or you know, the place I studied offered a bluegrass history class.
That's cool.
And I was all about that. Yeah. I felt like I kind of phoned in my class project, but and there wasn't a ton of information about the guy because he died young. I picked this guitar player named Clarence White to do my project on. He invented the B-bender.
Oh, no way. Clarence White, the B-bender inventor. That's pretty.
I
don't know why, but I wouldn't have thought that'd be a bluegrass player. I don't know what I thought it would be.
Well,
but
he was in the famous kind of like alt country, one of the first alt country bands, the Byrds. He was I think that's right, or was it the Yardbirds?
I think the Yardbirds was
Jeff
Led
Beck's
Zeppelin and wasn't Jimmy Page in that?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I think Clarence White was in the Byrds. Let me.
Okay.
I should just check.
Just
that.
look it up, man. Yeah, we got time. We're
we
not
have-
on any
we have
rush here.
Full on phone computers.
I know. I need a Jamie like on Joe Rogan. Jamie, look that up. Look that up, Jamie.
Okay, I was right. He was in the Byrds.
The
And then
Byrds.
his-
What
his-
era is that? What years are we talking about?
Well, yeah. So he would have invented that probably sometime between. Well, it depends on when he invented it. But
Well, when was he in the
He was in the
Byrds?
Byrds from 68 to 73.
Okay.
His
What was-
family band was the Kentucky Colonels, and so he had enough of a musical history that I was able to go through, talk about his childhood musical prowess. That he was, he.
Is he from Kentucky? Is that what?
I'm not even sure that they were from Kentucky. I mean, they were,
okay.
I think he grew up down the street from Tony Rice, but I can't remember where they grew up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, bluegrass is something that as I get older, I get more of a.
He was born in Lewiston, Maine.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you don't think of Maine when you think bluegrass,
No,
You know what's gotten me really more interested in bluegrass than
died in
anything?
California.
Died in California. Maine to California. He made it all the way. Sturgill Simpson's albums where he covered his own songs in bluegrass style. I mean, that was maybe the most inspiring thing. Where it's like, I need to dive more into this genre.
Oh, last time I went
It's incredible.
to Tedder's house, that's what we listened to.
They're
Was
great.
That record.
They're so great. I don't know what I thought it was going to be because he had made some social media post about, I'm releasing this bluegrass album. I thought maybe it was going to be all originals, and then when I found out he worked all these covers of his own songs, and I'm really picky of covers in general, but he just does them so well. He knows how to find players that know what he wants to do with his music.
There's that. I think, he has access to, really amazing players. I mean, like, one of the things that makes this record different is that Dan Creamer, also his stage name is Dancy Jenkins, but I mean, he's a member of the Texas Gentlemen.
He's the keyboard player plus, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I mean,
But that's his root is
plays
piano and keyboard,
bass,
right?
drums, keys, and like every synth-related instrument that's on this album. He's
My
playing all that stuff.
The first person to tell me that he played on their record, and I didn't realize I loved all their stuff, was Jenna Clark. Oh. He played a lot of stuff on one of her, I think on her first or second record, and she was talking to me about him. But yeah, I was going to ask where you recorded.
So this was while it was recorded by Taylor Tatch, it was recorded in a place that most people in the last couple decades have not recorded at this place. It was this place called Loma Ranch in Fredericksburg.
Was this because he was setting up his new studio?
Yeah, it was the build on his new, or actually, I mean, just he was in limbo for such a long time where they hadn't even started building yet. They hadn't bought the land yet. That
So
kind
he
of
was
stuff.
just kind of working where he could?
So
Okay.
this was
I was
a
wondering if he
place-
still produced it.
This was a place where he could work out of in the meantime. And it's kind of a funny environment because we kept seeing, like, this. I mean, this building is old, and and all of the things that make it a building on the inside are old. So we were seeing brown recluses throughout sessions and stuff, and
Yeah.
a lot of the walls literally are just like cloth.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Perfect little hiding spots for
Yeah,
spiders.
yeah, so some of that was kind of tricky, but I do think sonically this is probably the best thing I've done so far.
It's beautiful. I was hoping that I know you'd worked with him in the past, and I feel like he's one of the producers here. I mean, he's not local here to DFW anymore. Where's his new studio at? Fredericksburg. Okay, so I know he's down there now with his new studio, which looks gorgeous, by the way. When I see all the pictures of it online, and I think he's working out of it now, so it's up and
now
running.
it's up
right?
and going. Yeah.
Looks beautiful, but I think he's slowly becoming one of my favorite local producers.
He's
Every
great,
time I
man.
hear his work, I'm starting to catch details of.
Like, this is a Tatch thing.
I'm
Yeah.
starting to hear it because I hear.
I think there's even like a.
I tried to get him in here, but we can't get our schedules synced up because now I
Okay.
have to wait till he comes to Dallas. And we
Gotcha.
were talking back and forth for a minute, when he came up for a show or something, it just wasn't lining up. But I want to ask him about his influence because I feel like he's one of the few people that adds these tasteful Beatles influences to songs, but without it being like, this is a Beatle lick, you know? It's very subtle, but you can tell, like, I think this guy really loved that band, or at least drew influences from it. Because you hear
he's gotten to a point where mostly
it's a subtlety that I
like,
really enjoy.
But it goes so deep that some of the times I didn't know that we were doing a Beatles thing until he told me after the fact.
Yeah, it's very
like
subtle.
With
very subtle.
With one of the, not harmony, but a backing vocal that takes place in Wurlitzer Prize.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of jauntier, kind of adds a bit of levity. Is like, and he goes, it's Beatlesy. And
yeah.
Okay, and then when I was listening to Rubber Soul, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, it is actually.
I was re-listening to Wurlitzer Prize
that
today.
exists here.
Yeah. Well, I was re-listening to Wurlitzer Prize today, and because you were talking about, speaking of covers, like we were talking about Sturgill, you were telling me Tonight Will Be Fine was a cover, right?
It's so the lyrics are from a Leonard Cohen song.
Okay, so technically when it's lyrics, you got to say it's like a rewrite. Is that how it works? Or anyway, my point being,
no, you don't have to. You could call it a cover.
Yeah, but you're not doing the same chords or anything.
But I'm trying to overly respect myself.
Yeah.
a little bit.
Well, I bring that up though because when I saw that Sturgill covered his own music, I was real skeptical at first. But I just bought the vinyl outright before.
I'm not even totally certain what that means.
So, he
didn't write new songs for it.
He took the songs off of his other albums,
like High Top Mountain,
Sailor's Guide from Earth. He took songs out of his entire catalog.
That Turtles All the Way Down record,
Meta Modern Sounds of country music.
I always forget the title.
So he turned all of those into bluegrass songs, right? But they're all reworked. They sound nothing like the originals.
They sound like bluegrass songs.
So to me, it's like he covered his own stuff, and it sounds incredible. No,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Cover's probably the wrong word. It's his stuff. He's not covering it, but. Anyway, it's a ballsy.
So like the trendy way of saying that now is reimagining.
I reimagine it.
Reimagining.
Yeah.
It's like
it's a risky move, right? Because you already thought those songs were complete. And
I want to reimagine. I want to redo. I want to re-record, maybe even with Taylor. But I want to. He would probably be less excited about it, but because re-recording stuff. Like until you get far enough removed from the first time, re-recording stuff feels like a pain. But
not bad.
But I would just like to hear different versions of two of my songs. "Caught Me by Surprise" was a really old one now.
Okay.
And "I Must Be Evil." "I Must Be Evil," like technically that only got released to the public 4 years ago, but I had been playing it 2 years before that.
Well, I mean. You reimagine other people's songs very well.
Thanks.
I was so impressed with the first time I met you with Wurlitzer Prize, and then you put out a couple covers, and one of the ones that stood out was Heart Shaped Box. That was a great cover, man.
You know what?
And then because you texted me, and we won't say exactly what you said, but you were like, "Hey, this is not my song. I reworked it, and the original is." Blah blah blah.
I don't mind people knowing that. I
found the original to listen to it because I wanted to compare, and I was like, "Whoa, so different," And it starts off, the guitar riff. If we're listening to the same version, I think it starts off a busy little strumming pattern, and you're thinking, "Okay, this is kind of interesting. This is really interesting for a moment."
It's as far as the way that chord progression is presented, or the way his chord progression is presented. It's not far off from like a Johnny Cash.
No, it's close. It's close to something that sounds really cool. It just kind of, it's fine. It's fine. It's just fine. But your version, I feel like, definitely grabs the emotion of what that song's trying to say so much better than that original.
I think, if there's anything, I mean, I haven't been good enough at this thing that I'm good at for it to become my real career yet. Mm-hmm. So I always feel like anytime I talk about what I'm good at, somebody could say, well, you haven't made it your career at it.
Well,
so I guess you kind of suck at it. But
being good at it, and making it your career, two totally different things.
Yeah, they are
two totally different things.
Yeah,
and that's a product of so many other variables that you can't control.
Because
listen, if we were in an era, this is my opinion. This is my opinion only. People can disagree. I don't care. But if we were in an era where musicians had more tangible things to make money off of, right? If you could still sell CDs instead of pushing streams, I think the quality and variety of musicians and bands would be elevated significantly. I think that's really one of the only barriers that hinders so many phenomenal people who still have day jobs from quitting those day jobs. Just here locally in our scene, you can just start naming bands and artists that should be doing this for a living professionally, not needing a daytime job. But that's really what it is. It's the revenue streams are so much harder now for musicians to create. And it was hard to begin with, but at least if you had, when you did your version of Wurlitzer Prize, if you had the infrastructure that people had in the 90s and 2000s, that alone could have helped push that album, and then your originals would have followed after it that people would have dug, and you just start building. And we've just, I love it and hate it. It's like I love the access to Spotify. I love the ability to check out all these new bands, but they just screw over artists so much. If they would even just adjust their revenue, the way they pay out, they would actually prop up the music community in such a strong way if they would pay the artists, because then these artists could afford, it would be one more way to make money that they could afford to then leave jobs and become full-time musicians, paying. And the only reason I say professional is to just say you're making your living off of it. Not that I think there are a lot of people who are not making their living off of it that are professional musicians.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And, we talked about Tedder. I mean, he's another great example. That's a name that is known, but should definitely be known on a higher level. And I think that's one of the only reasons. His album that he put out was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that, if he was in a world where he could push, vinyls are great, but vinyls are expensive to print, right? And vinyls don't have the same.
And in the last 4 years, you wouldn't believe how much they've gone up.
I believe it 100%. But we were in that generation where you got a CD, you threw it in the CD player in your car. It was an experience. You could listen to it in so many different ways. But I
feel so guilty that I can't just give away merch.
Well, we can still stream everything, but the difference is when you had that CD, at least a percentage of that sale went to the artist. It was a way. If you sold 1 million CDs and you didn't get screwed over in your contract, you had a way to now start doing this thing. And now all it was up to you is make sure the music continues to stay good. Best of luck, And we have to find that new thing, because there are so many people who are good at it. They just can't make the money off of it. And there's smaller and smaller groups that are controlling your opportunities for success in terms of streams, booking venues, having booking agents in general. I mean, it's harder, when you have these big conglomerates that control ticket sales. It makes it really difficult to book, a big tour up. It makes it harder, but it can still be done.
I have a lot of little different versions of kind of being at a crossroads, and one of them is, well, okay, so what exact number do I need to hit on Spotify monthly listeners? And what exact number do I need to hit on, as far as social media following, to make it so that a booking agent feels like they have to try and book me?
Right.
Because the other option is that you get somebody that likes your material enough that they're just willing to kind of, like, they're going to know they can't make a real profit off of you in venues across the country, but they're going to help anyway because they like what you do. Well, that's really hard to find. And I've had talks with booking agents, and I don't know if they're lying to me, but the 2 booking agents I've had real conversations with that have seen me live have said, "Oh, I love what you do. I just have a full roster." It's like, is that real?
Yeah. Are you politely blowing me off, or do you really just have a full roster?
I just don't know.
And, it's tough.
And, it's hard to ask somebody those words. It's hard to ask somebody, are you just being nice to me right now? Because I kind of wish you wouldn't.
Yeah, you hope they would just tell you, hey, man, I like what you're doing, but here's the reasons I can't do anything with it.
I mean,
that would be helpful.
And the statute of limitations on this conversation is old enough that I'll go ahead and say, like, this European booker told like our go-between. We weren't talking to each other, but this European booker told my friend that tries to get me opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
He, after listening to all my stuff, he literally said, and I saw the message. He literally said, I love Garrett's music. I just feel that I cannot book it in Europe, that it would not get booked, that it would not draw an audience in Sweden.
Okay.
He said, I love it personally. I just feel it would not draw, and then I'm sitting around thinking for weeks, thinking to myself, what if you're wrong?
Right.
What if you don't know your audience? What if they're actually more open-minded than you think? Because what he said was, I think Garrett's music is too complex for most of Europe. But all the classical music came from Europe, dude. Like, how
and I think,
how can this be true?
I think Europe has been through enough in its history that they can appreciate a little bit of complexity. I think a lot about that because I think, do I just have an ego and I think I know how to do things and I'm way off base? But I do feel like music is missing risk takers in those positions. Your labels, your bookers, producers, people who are willing to take a risk and go, man, I might lose my ass on this, but there's something here. And part of me that makes me feel more that way is I saw an interview with Alice Cooper. I mean, sorry, not Alice Cooper. Frank Zappa. Excuse me, Frank Zappa.
Oh, even better.
Yeah,
much better.
Well, but he was talking about how these.
I love weirdos. Yeah, I
I mean,
love weird dudes.
I think he's a really bright guy, and
I think so,
I think
too.
he understands the music industry. But he was talking about how in the '60s,
Maybe one of the smartest people to ever live. I mean,
might be right. He was talking about how in the '60s, for better or worse, you had this wide swath of music that was just such a variety of music. But at that time, you had people in suits making all the decisions who didn't give a shit about the music.
Oh.
They were trying to make a ton of money off of it. And he thought that was a better thing. He thought that when you had, let's just say I love X genre. I love country music. We're going to say I love country music, right? And my version of country music is a very homogenous style of music. I'm going to listen to, I like when I hear this type of drum beat, these types of guitars, this type of vocalist, and it widens a tiny, tiny bit, but it's all within that range. And he said when you have really cool people running labels and things like that, that's what happens is you end up having about 9 or 10 bands on the same label that all sound the same. Whereas when you had these stiffs in these suits who didn't really understand music, they would just be like, what is that? And they'd be like, I don't know. It sounds weird. They might like it. Put it out. And because they took risk, you had this weirder music getting into the mainstream, which ended up being more successful.
Yeah.
And and talk about your cover of Heart-Shaped Box, right? Talk about Nirvana. If we went with that formula of what sells and what we think our listeners want, Nirvana would never have been a fucking thing. They were so different than what was coming out at the time that was wildly popular, and that's why people fell in love with it, And I think it does go through these cycles of we get real homogenous sounds, and then you have these people who break that
See, I wish I
mold.
could have gone through that period. So I was born in '85.
Yeah.
So I wish I could have gone through the mid '90s as a real teenager.
I think you were close enough to it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have gone. Okay, I wish in that way, it's like I wish I just would have been born in '80, so that I could be, I could have been 15 or 14 when Smells Like Teen Spirit kind of changes everything.
I think Gen X was maybe the last generation to have an incredible music experience.
Yeah, I mean, so
right, because it was the last generation. They really, when they were going to these concerts, when they were exploring bands, there was no social media. They were exploring it as raw as you could before smartphones and social media now, right? So there were no clips of what you were about to see. You just had to go and see what the show was like.
My longest relationship was with a woman 9 years older than me. And so what does that mean? That means she was born in like 76, 77, something like that. So, so she was almost college age.
Okay.
By the time Nirvana's, so she actually went through a legit, like, Fade to Black is the best thing that ever had to happen to music, and Metallica is the biggest thing. And then she's still so near adolescence when grunge happens.
Yeah.
And then so I was really, that was probably part of why I liked her so much, because she had like this experience that I wish I could have had.
Yeah.
because so much of my favorite music happen even though, I mean, you grow up and you mature, and part of maturing in my case is like deciding, well, I want to like jazz, so I'm going to listen to enough jazz to make myself like it. Mm-hmm. But the first things I was truly interested in trying to play were really aggressive. Mm-hmm. And just to talk about kind of how media and the bigger forces at play treat music. So like Stone Temple Pilots was voted worst band of 94 by all of the writers in Rolling Stone. The readers poll voted them best band of 94 of that same year. And I had this experience. I'm so tangential, but we can make it back to where we were somehow.
You're good, man.
But technically Rosemary and Thieves was a single. Mm-hmm. But the woman that I hired to run PR for this record, she couldn't find anybody who wanted to premiere Rosemary and Thieves. And like,
what did they want to premiere, or did they?
Well, I mean, it's like, so what got a premiere?
Probably Pony Express.
Pony Express got a premiere. Mm-hmm. Beautiful Stain got a premiere.
Yeah, going with
Punchline. Punchline has like an honorary premiere. I didn't make it a single, but Punchline is going to had a little piece written about it. Mm-hmm. And there was something else.
But that's kind of what we're talking about. Is you get these people who control industries, and I'm not even saying they're bad at it. They're just
one way this relates. Okay, so to that Stone Temple Pilots thing, like the readers poll voting. So off of this album, the songs I did every night on tour were Beautiful Stain, Rosemary and Thieves. Not in this order. They were sprinkled in the set a different way, but Beautiful Stain, Rosemary and Thieves, Pony Express, Dead on New Year's Day. And Tonight Will Be Fine. Mm-hmm. On this tour I did back in February, I did The Waiting Place at every show, but I dropped it because it's just in my lowest register, and I just feel like the set needs to spend more time in my higher register.
Okay,
but that could have been a bad decision. I don't know, but out of all the somewhat brand new stuff, or the stuff on this new record that I played every night on this run, or at every show on the run, Rosemary and Thieves got the most positive feedback. Where that was the one, maybe it was partly because of, I introed it by talking about how she would try and bring all this dead shrubbery back in the house and try and bring it back to life by putting it in little soy sauce bowls full of water, thinking that like that would revive dead plants and stuff. And that's where I got this. She used to keep such a beautiful garden, but now she just waters the weeds thing. It came from. Unfortunately, it didn't come from her literally doing that. It came from her seeing do something that's kind of like that.
Right. Yeah.
Where she was trying to constantly bring just like dead stuff out in the yard and trying to bring it back to life somehow.
Yeah.
But I think that's funny. My PR lady could not find a single publication out of all the people that she works with that wanted to premiere Rosemary and Thieves. Whereas but in person at shows, the song that I got the most of the new lot of songs, I got the most feedback from Name about Rosemary and Thieves.
I mean, there's a lot to be said about that, because who ultimately is consuming it, right? It's the listener. And I think a lot of, look, that vinyl record that I told you I helped produce for Brave Little Hal, I won't mention who it was, but locally, one of our publications that has been around for some time. I'm not going to even say which city between Dallas and Fort Worth, but I was reaching out to try to get some promotion for this. And the way I was reaching out, I'm emailing people, messaging people, just saying, we made this record. It's not going to be there's no digital release of that. It's only on vinyl. Because it's not the true form of their original written music. It's a different version. And I wanted it to feel like this vinyl only experience for their listeners who love their music will really appreciate it. But still, we're looking for press about it. It's for sale. We're trying to move it. And my move was, hey, let me send you this record. If you love it, we would appreciate it if you would consider writing something up on it or do whatever you want to do. And I reached out to a lot of people on social media who were just vinyl enthusiasts because I thought, they might appreciate the story of how we made this and what it is and that it's a vinyl exclusive. All the vinyl nerds online, they were like, absolutely, send it. That sounds cool. And it might have taken a week. It might have taken 3-4 months. But eventually they were like, hey, got this cool thing out of this city. Here's what they did. Love it. Finally gave it a spin. You could tell the way they talked about it that they actually listened to it and checked it out. And that's all I asked. I didn't need and if you listen to it and you don't like it, no, I just said, hey, if you don't enjoy it, just give the record to anybody else you want. No big deal. Appreciate you taking the time. Because not everything's for you, right? When I reached out to the local publications, first of all, it was super hard to really dial anyone in any kind of conversation of just responding to an email. And it's like, come on. But then one in particular, I got in touch with their music editor, and I was like, I'd love to send you a vinyl, blah, blah, blah. And their response was, that sounds really cool, but I don't own a record player. It's like, how are you a music editor of a publication and you don't own a record player? And then I got to thinking about all this stuff, how can you promote things appropriately? Not you don't have to promote my thing, but how are you giving music its appropriate attention if you don't even have, if you're a music editor, you should have a tape deck, vinyl player. Yeah, everything. I want everything. Yeah. You're telling me you love this so much that you want to control how people hear about new things. You should have access to stuff. So it really just rubbed me the wrong way. And that's how I feel about a lot of labels, bookers, all these things. You gotta have people who love it so much that they'll take chances, take risk. They'll put these things out there, and people who assume they know what people want to listen to, I think that's the wrong way. I think if you're going to work with an artist, it should just be, what do you think the single should be? What do you think I should push? Here's what I'm thinking, but tell me what you're thinking. And if you say I really like this because of XYZ, you should maybe make it a priority to go, okay, let's try it and learn a little. Like, it might be the better single to push.
So in kind of searching for somebody to run PR for this album, I didn't consult a lot of people. Where the last time around, I think I consulted more people before making a decision. But one of the reasons I felt like it was an easy fit was because I asked her, just give me like your top 5 songs off of this record, and kind of to get some kind of to gauge if we are similar in what we like listening to at all. And so, because Rosemary and Thieves was in her top 5, I said I'll probably work with this person.
That's a great approach, though.
But because I already had in my mind, like, I want to run Rosemary and Thieves as a single, basically, no matter what anybody else thinks. Because I've listened to, or I've seen enough music happen in the world that I know that Rosemary and Thieves is a hard sell for probably a lot of people. But also, like, maybe it is the most complex thing I've ever written. Happens to be like one of the songs I got feedback on from people, and they would go, what, like, which one has that song about your grandma on it? Well, it's right here, it's that one. Or like, what was the...
But I think that's a fallacy. I don't think people have an issue with complex. If you think about, people like to go that route.
It just has to be delivered somehow differently.
Right? I don't even think it needs to be that. I think, and here's my reasoning for that, okay? I think the 90s and 2000s is some of the greatest era of music, but I also think the 60s and 70s, some of the greatest music that's ever been made. Think about some of the hits back then that have turned into just staples. Music. Think about a song like Bohemian Rhapsody.
Ooh.
And how if you try to present anything, not even that style, but just anything that is that different nowadays, no one's going to do it. And it's one of the songs that almost everyone who listens to music consistently knows that song, right? everyone's like, oh, if you want to write a hit, it's got to be like 2 or 3 minutes long, right?
Well, maybe I think you have to have complex stuff force fed to you before you like it.
Well, but people saying like, hey, a song really needs to be like 3 minutes, 3.5. People don't have an attention span. Okay, well, what about Freebird? One of the most requested songs all the time. The ridiculous length of that solo, for that to be a radio played song off of that album, give me a break. Like people don't mind that. I was listening to, I went back through ZZ Top recently, and
that's fun.
Songs like
also something that has been on Tedder's turntable at a time I've been over at his house. Yeah,
there's great stuff on there, man. It's a totally different style of playing. It's a voice that when you listen to a song like LaGrange, right? When you listen to a song like LaGrange, everything about that song is different than what was coming out at the time.
Which is part of what inspired me to play guitar.
Okay.
Because the dude that I was staying at this dude's house,
mm-hmm.
he played LaGrange over the phone to a girl.
Mm.
And, well, also there was that she liked it, but also he reached a point in the song where he was trying to learn it. And I think I told you this last time. He stops it. He stops the CD. He's trying to figure out how to play this thing. He stops the CD and goes, damn it, these guys are good.
Yeah. and if you really think about that song, right, it's mostly a guitar solo.
Yeah.
I think there's one verse, right? Maybe a second verse? I can't even remember at this point.
But that's a weird thing.
I think we sing right at the beginning of that song, and then he just solos for about a minute and a half, right? And there's a couple breakdowns of solos back into a solo, and then we're out.
Billy has this weirdly, I think of him as having kind of a limited skill set, but he's also, in that limited skill set, he's one of the most lyrical guitar players of all time.
You know what he's like? He's like a person who pinstripes cars. You know what I'm talking about? These people who pinstripe by hand, right? So that's not in high demand, is it? No. But you know what? Like Rolls-Royce, they still pay someone a high salary to do custom pinstripe on a Rolls-Royce when you buy one. Or if you go to classic car shows, there are enthusiasts who want that hand-drawn. So it's one of those where like, okay, yeah, this is a very limited thing that not everybody's going to want all the time, but that's still a professional that does it to such a high level. That person Billy Gibbons had to play guitar that way for so long that you and I, even if you and I learn everything he does, it's just not going to sound like him. He's just got that touch, the way he plays those songs. It's Billy Gibbons. You can play it, and you can play something that's more complex than that, but he's so cool about how he does it. It's his, it's his voice. And I know that's so cliche about guitar playing, about like, oh, it's in your fingers. But for him, it really is. The way he can just bend a string for an absurdly long time, and it sounds cool. And it sounds cool. And it doesn't sound cheesy somehow. It doesn't sound lame. It's really good.
Well, and some of this, like the heavy guitar players that have been influenced by blues players or by a blues rock player like Billy Gibbons, like by the way Jerry Cantrell does, the way he plays bends and just sustained notes, he has probably really loved ZZ Top at some point. Or the way Dimebag Darrell played, the way he bent notes and did like those like,
especially knowing
those like double half step bends and stuff. That can probably mostly come from, maybe it came from himself, but I think it came from David Gilmour, who was heavily influenced by blues players. But I mean, I like a lot of these heavy players that these metal guys that draw on that bluesy stuff. And I swear, like Dimebag Darrell's solo on Pantera's version of Planet Caravan, the Sabbath song, is like a jazz guitar solo.
I'll have to check it out. I've never heard it.
I swear, it's one of the, that's a jazz solo to me every time I hear it.
But that's another great example of what we're talking about, right? I was bringing up ZZ Top and these things of what is not necessarily, like people would have said that's not a single. That's not the thing that we should push to make you popular, and it is the thing, right? Pantera. Pantera.
Yeah, dude.
Think about, so you did experience Pantera when they were coming out, right?
I was even late to that.
Okay.
I think I was, okay, so
but what I mean is you were near enough in that time period to understand that Pantera became a huge popular thing.
I think, Vulgar just played with like 94 or 95. I probably bought it in 99.
Okay, but you knew that there wasn't much happening like that at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When you think about a song like Cowboys from Hell, and you think about your process of pushing this record, right? So you record Cowboys from Hell.
Oh, dude.
You want Cowboys from Hell to be the radio single, right? Radio is huge at the time, right? And you're trying to sell this aggressive, screaming. He yells like this brute force guy, and then at other times he screams these falsettos. Oh, and there's a guy who has
falsettos are like Halford,
right?
They sound like what's Halford? What's Halford in? What's Rob Halford's band? Why can't I think of that?
Come on now, you got it.
I don't.
You got it. Look it up. You can look it up.
I know.
I'm gonna make you sweat this one. But the point being,
Glenn Tipton, KK Downing. I can name everybody in the band. I just can't name the band.
it'll come around and you'll scream it out in a second. But
Judas Priest. Okay.
But even think about his guitar tone.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different than kind of what was happening.
Crazy.
Right?
And like really piercing at times.
Yes. And by a lot of people's standards, one of the worst guitar tones that ever existed. Right?
I realized
I've
decided that about Randy Rhoads. I don't know if anybody agrees with me.
Another great example, though.
The one time that I was in my bedroom and I thought I had gotten close to achieving Randy Rhoads' tone. Mm-hmm. What I thought the next second was like, and this sounds terrible.
Yeah. But when you listen to that Crazy Train solo, it doesn't sound terrible at all, does it? It sounds incredible.
No. But so Paul Gilbert is really active on do you know him? Mm-hmm. Paul Gilbert? Okay. The guitar player for Racer X and Mr. Big.
Okay.
But he's really active on YouTube and social media. He's really funny, but he talks about seeing Ozzy live when Randy was playing for him.
Yeah.
And that Randy's tone, the guitar was so hot to achieve that tone that he couldn't pull his hand off for even a second. That if there was like a split second where his palm wasn't in the right place, mm-hmm. that full stack of Marshalls would just start to go, whoo!
Oh, wow.
Like the whole time. So
that was one of the keys, is just turn it up.
Is that he had like the hottest guitar sound ever.
Well, it's very unique to him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Randy.
And if you think about his playing style, there's not much left open in there. I mean, he is busy.
Yeah, he's playing pretty much the whole time, but every now and then. Mm-hmm. Paul Gilbert talked about there would be a moment where
he just had to really roll that volume off fast.
He wasn't quite fast enough on palming it, and then there was like this, just the amp was screaming.
But I mean, think about these bands we're talking about. So all these people who say, well, this wouldn't work, that wouldn't work. I don't know. I think people love different. I think when people hear I think if you go to a bar to casually drink and there's a cover band or something, people like things to be similar. But I think if you go to a venue for live music that you haven't experienced, you're ready for different things. Nobody wants to go watch a show with the same 4 acts. Nobody likes that. And if you think about the most, let's think about like the most successful people. Probably one of the biggest people ever would be like Lady Gaga. And when she came out with that first record at the time, so different even in pop music than other pop music. Mm. Right? Well, you don't even have to like her music to just say it wasn't the same as the other pop artist at the time. It was a very different record. People want different. They love different, and then you can stay if you're just an overwhelming talent, you don't have to really break down too many barriers. You'll just kind of accidentally do it. Like someone I've been loving lately, he just put out a new record, is Billy Strings. You familiar with him?
Yeah,
of course you are. Yeah,
I like Billy Strings a lot.
Well, there's a great example of people will be really excited about the different stuff also. Mm-hmm. But then when somebody loves a certain style and they do their version of it really well, people will still come back to that too.
He's one of the few guitar players in this crop of guitar players who have become really popular in the last 6-7 years.
Right.
That I've learned some of his solos on purpose.
Yeah.
I have sat down and listened until I thought I was as close as possible to figuring out a couple solos that he's played.
Yeah. Well, and I love the fact that he is clearly in this, country, Americana, bluegrass, blah, 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 whatever genre you want to throw on it. But he's a new generation of
He's
it.
got like dang wah pedals on his
Exactly,
He's
man.
like,
He on his new record, he's got this song called "More Bud for Me," and there's no instruments on it. Well, there might be a little bit in the background. Maybe there's like a little padding something, but he's using sounds from like a bong, like the water bubbles and the lighter sounds, things like that. And it reminded me so much of I don't know if you ever listened to Sublime at all. Did you ever listen to that? They had a song called "My Ruka," where it's just like they're just hitting like on a trash can or something. They're just like boom, pop, boom.
Okay, so they're one of those bands I've never listened to a record back to front.
Gotcha. Well, one of their albums,
Front to back.
It opens up with him just basically banging a beat like that, and he's singing over it.
Oh, okay.
And maybe an instrument like ducks in a little bit, but it's just a very limited way of writing on purpose. And Billy Strings has a song called "More Bud for Me," very similar thing. And I was just thinking, wow, I love that this stereotyped country musician is taking these chances of just a different way of writing that, but he still has enough of the twang, the melody's still kind of that you can tell he's crossing some genres in a really fun way. And then, man, my favorite song on that album of his is the very last one. It's called, or not the very last one, it's close to the last one. The album I'm talking about is called Highway Prayers. He just released it. It's really good. But second to the last song is called Richard Petty, and it's just maybe like four harmonies, 4 vocals, no instruments at all, and it's just a standard, kind of the way that, like the Eagles would harmonize, but it's kind of upbeat to where it sounds like a gospel song in a sense, and the whole song is about making something of yourself, like I'm finally going to get off my ass and do something. It's called Richard Petty because one of the lines is, one of these days I'll wake up steady and ready to go like Richard Petty.
Oh.
But the song is about one of these days I'm going to get my shit together, I'm going to do something. But it's maybe one of the first songs in a long time, no instruments, just pure vocals, where you're just thinking, I'm so pumped and inspired right now to just go. I'm doing a lot of running these days, and I didn't think a country harmonizing.
How many marathons have you done?
I'm about to do my 7th in December.
Yo, that's nuts, dude.
I think I'm going to keep doing it until I can't do it anymore. But I like doing the Dallas one and the Fort Worth one. It's a December and February, and then I kind of take the rest of the year off. But anyway, I find myself, it's like 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night when I have to go start some of these runs. It's late, and I'm just beat. And I didn't think that would be my go-to hype song, the one that doesn't have drums, guitar, just vocals, and I'm just getting pumped with, I don't know what it is, but just to say, like, people like variety, people like differences. You just never know what song is going to hit somebody the way it does. And I didn't think it would. He put like maybe 20 songs on this album. It's a deep album.
Whew.
I didn't think that would be the one that I loved more than all the others right now,
Well, I turn out to be wrong with so much stuff because when I was thumbing through your episodes, I was listening to one of your episodes with Griefer. What was her?
Emily Griefer,
Emily
stand-up
Griefer,
comic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to but somewhere near that in the queue, I guess you spend some time. I don't know if you did a whole episode, but you talk about Wet Leg.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't know
that was back when I was playing. I had to stop playing music on the episodes when I went to YouTube. Everything was getting flagged for copyright infringement, and it was getting too challenging to get people's digital distributors to release that, even though they were okay with things being played on the show. And I was like, I'm not going to risk getting flags on YouTube and all that. But yeah, Wet Leg, another great example of a different band.
Yeah, so I noticed people in the age group that's 5, 10, 15 years younger than me liking Wet Leg, and I thought, these people need to know about when Liz Phair was still gritty and raw and like a super weird thing in like 94, 95. Liz Phair's stuff is still incredibly out there. And I mean, she turned into kind of like a full-on pop act suddenly in like the year 2000. And she was on Ellen, and she had this hit called Why Can't I? And it sounds nothing like the stuff that she made in the early 90s.
Yeah.
But I thought, but so far, none of the people that in this age range that I'm talking about, like people, 5, 10, 15 years younger than me that I've showed Liz Phair that like Wet Leg, none of them.
They don't like
Liz Phair.
Interesting.
And I'm showing them the Liz Phair that's like weird and like overtly sexual. But yeah, none of them have liked it.
I think
so I'm wrong about stuff.
I don't think you're wrong. I think the important thing is that you show. I mean, that's why I enjoy this show, right?
Or I think
that's why I enjoy hosting.
They would like mid-90s Hole, or Or I think they would like that, but I don't know if they like that.
I think they're just going to find it when they find it, right? But I think the important thing is to always be exposing those things, so that someone's at that point when they're ready to hear it, when they're ready to experience it, that they can, because. Let's look at a real cheesy example. What is the band? The song "Take on Me."
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't name the band.
I think it's Aha or something. But point being, for years of my life, that just seemed like a really cheesy, dumb song. And then as I mature, learn a little more about how to write a song and perform.
Songs that you thought were Tears for Fears songs.
Yeah, well, but then you start really paying attention to how this person is singing that chorus, and you're thinking, my God, how are you singing that?
Yeah.
How are you writing that? How did that come into your mind? And then you still had to turn it into a hit, and
that operatic.
So now all of a sudden it's like I really not only do I respect that song so much more, but then when it comes on, you want to listen to it and you're thinking,
maybe
fuck yeah, this is great.
Maybe my mom could hit that note, but you don't think a dude is hitting that note, but a dude is hitting that note, yeah.
And that song's way before my time. I just think I think as long as the music's out there, people will find it. So if Wet Leg had if Liz Phair was maybe an inspiration for them, which it feels like that could be potentially in somebody's wheelhouse in that band, right? That eventually maybe that'll come up in an interview with them or something, and then their fans will go, "Oh, now I'll go check it out."
I mean,
or even just from this podcast, it's somebody who likes Wet Leg that listens to this podcast might go check out Liz Phair now just because you talked about it.
I hope so. I think Liz Phair's early stuff is so interesting still. I mean, it's so interesting in fact that it's not an easy listen because her choices were just so odd. And
I'll go down that rabbit hole, not so much lately, but every now and then I'll find just a real weird artist. and they end up being really, really interesting once you kind of give them a chance. Like one of the more weird artists. Did you ever hear of Joanna Newsom?
Yeah,
she played harp.
Right, never really got into it.
I gave it some front to back listens. There were a couple songs that I really liked, but overall it was like, okay, we're experimenting. There's some interesting stuff, not for me. But I still don't mind going down that trip of checking it out. I want to hear it first, And then, I don't know. I think if you love music, you'll give it a good 2-3 listens, see what's up. But there's a lot of strange music that is very listenable. That's very interesting. I mean, what about that Beatles cover of I think it's the Beatles, right? Where it's like money. I want money. That's all I want. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Okay. And then someone redid it, probably like the 70s or probably the 80s, actually, where it's like it was the female singer.
It's
and
like
she's
a Euro pop.
Yeah. And she's like, I want money.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's what I want.
Yeah. How many people heard that song that probably never heard of the Beatles? And then they were like, oh, this was covered, and boom. Now you've got all these albums to explore, and maybe you love it, maybe you hate it. But I think that's the key is, again, going back to covers, I think that's why it's so important to do a cover very different than the original. I think that if you're going to make a new version of something, it should stay true to the original, but it should be totally your own, or why do it at all?
Yeah, I mean,
except for a live event. Like if you just are paying homage to a song and you want to play it exactly the way it is, that's cool. But if you're going to put it on a record, I feel like it should be different.
Yeah, and in that way, I kind of feel like it's possible that we didn't go quite different enough.
On this one?
With Heart-Shaped,
Heart-Shaped Box.
This
was great. The I'm sorry, I forgot the song name already. Tonight Will Be Fine.
I mean, it's hard to find ways that it could be more different. But like,
also, Heart-Shaped Box, that's a ballsy song to cover in
the
general.
First place. Yeah.
I thought it was a wonderful version. I thought it was plenty different.
Thanks. I kind of thought...
Were you nerve-wracked putting that out there? Because it's a Nirvana song.
Well, I mean...
A really popular one.
I'm in this weird place where, because of some stuff that went on with my social media, I can't sponsor posts right now. My Facebook got hacked.
Of course.
And not just my Facebook got hacked. The ad, like the ad studio
That
of my music Facebook got hacked.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't. So I don't know if that precludes me from doing Instagram ads, but I can't do Facebook ads right now because of that.
Yeah, that's lame.
But so I was able to sponsor Heart Shaped Box, and I was able to sponsor it so that a bunch of people who did not like it would see it. And so that's what a lot of the comments that I got when I sponsored it on Instagram were things like, this is exactly like the original.
Really?
Yeah. Or
I didn't pick up that at
right.
all.
So we went, distorted guitars in the chorus, but everything else about the song is different.
It's a pretty different vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if Dave Grohl heard it, he would love it.
I think he'd like it. I think Kurt might like it, even though, I mean, it sounded like he was a massive hater, but I think he might like it.
I think the way we get it up there is we find a way to get it to Jack Black, and then he can get it over to Dave. Nah, man, I think it's a wonderful cover.
I always
I told my wife before I showed up here, I was like, it makes me nervous when Garrett does a good cover, because it's like your covers are great, but your originals are good too. And I get worried when people do covers really well that
so just be a covers artist.
No, that just people will hear the cover, but then maybe not spend the time to go hear the original. You hope they go to it. Like have you heard of this band called Royal Otis?
No.
They did a cover of
what you're saying right now is part of why I didn't do Heart Shaped Box on this tour.
Oh yeah,
I did it on the on tour back in February, but I didn't do it on this last one.
So do you remember that song "Linger"? Do you have to let it linger? So they did a live
Cranberries.
Yeah,
okay.
They did a live. They were doing like the Sirius XM sessions, and they covered that. So it was just a guitarist and the singer, and it was live, and they nailed it. Like the guy's got a really beautiful voice, and there's no drums or anything, so it sounds a little different, but it's very close to the original. His voice is just so good. It just really nails it. And the problem is my wife was listening to this band before they did that cover. And, they have, let's see how many albums they got right now. They got 2 albums, 2023, 2024, right? And they're talented. Their songs are cool. And
where did you say they're from?
I don't know where they're from, but, their cover of Linger has 91 million, right? And then like one of their other more popular songs has 35 million. So it's getting that much more play. Now it's great. They're benefiting from it. It's doing fine. But you don't want them to be known as the band who covered Linger. You want them to be known for all their cool original work, and it's fine if that's how people get there. But it makes me nervous that people would go to their show, not enjoy any of the songs until they get to the cover. I just want to hear that cover song. Yeah. So I can see. So you didn't play the covers on your stuff, huh?
I didn't do Heart Shaped. I didn't do Heart Shaped on this tour. I did it, and I got great results back in February. But that's part of why I pulled it, because I wanted to just focus on original. Well, and even though I did Tonight Will Be Fine, but I did it because it's on this record.
Well, and it's so no one's gonna know what that song
right,
is.
Almost
Where
nobody.
Did you find that song, by the way?
So yeah, that's why I have kind of a story about it. But it goes back to the days when Facebook was helpful more often. But yeah, and I had my EP out already. My first EP, I think I put that EP out in 2011 or 12. And so sometime in 2013, I was only ever playing this coffee shop, but I was, I was giving it its just due. I was like promoting every time I played there, inviting. I had a bigger friend group at the time than I do now, as far as like people I actually saw on a regular basis. And I booked this event, and the way I got people to show up, or my incentive for people, was put song requests on the Facebook wall of this event, and I will pick out of the songs you guys put in here. I will pick so many to make my own arrangement of. And people really misunderstood that. It's like they really didn't understand that I was going to make my own arrangements of these songs. And so they showed up thinking they were going to somehow hear me as one guy do like the full band arrangement of Joe Walsh's some Joe Walsh song somebody put in there.
Yeah.
Nope, can't do that by yourself at all. But some people, I think there was a Dylan song I remember doing. There were Paul Simon songs that I did. But with this song, I listened to it.
So somebody
requested that song.
Who is that psycho that knew that song?
Well,
I mean, it just seems like such a deep cut song.
There's this. I mean, she's a full on woman now. I thought we were all in our early 20s back then, or mid 20s, and but my friend, she requested this Leonard Cohen song. The reason she requested actually because there had been this like tribute DVD to Leonard Cohen where Teddy Thompson stayed. I mean, he has like this amazing voice, so he made the song sound so much better just by doing a better job of singing it.
Yeah,
but he really kept it the same. Whereas I changed everything that you could change about this song: melody, how long you play chords for, how many times he repeats a certain part of the refrain. I even changed that.
You did everything but change the words.
Yeah, I did everything except change most of the lyrics. I didn't. But she was kind of thinking that I would poke around long enough to see the Teddy Thompson version and do kind of justice to the Teddy Thompson version. But to me, he didn't change anything. He just sang it better.
Oh, I see.
So, but that was enough for her.
But
But to me, I thought the original rendition of the song was. I question why somebody would even want it to exist.
It's an interesting version.
It's so just like clunky.
I say version. It's the original.
Yeah,
it's an interesting song.
It's like it's a.
It does seem like a person who wrote it, but they're still kind of working it out.
Right.
It seems like you recorded a demo.
Or to me, I've never done this, so that's why I can say this. But I think songs can have a certain sound when the person writes a sonnet or a long poem.
True.
And then just puts that on an instrument, and then just sings that over a series of chords. To me, that's not really songwriting. That's singing poetry over a
you're kind of forcing it to work
over a piece of music that you have not carefully curated. So to me, the whole writing process is really painstaking because I'll only sing words that I feel like they sound good when you sing them.
Yeah.
And I'll only sing phrases that I feel like they sound good when you sing it. But I feel like that, and I feel like Cohen was usually just taking poems and putting them over guitar music. But most of the time, he was much better at it than that. Because I mean, most of the people that cover Hallelujah, they're not changing the melody, they're not changing the chord structure. They're just doing a better job performing that piece. Whereas, like, this is a totally different piece altogether. But so that's what happened with Teddy Thompson's version of Tonight Will Be Fine. He just sings it better. He doesn't play it that much differently. He plays it a little smoother. He doesn't do it, and he's not playing. That sounded like a nylon string guitar that had like the lightest light strings you can put on a nylon. It's a weird guitar sound on the original. But so it's kind of like he made up for weirdness what the song was actually lacking in compositional skill. Except the lyrics are some of the best lyrics I've ever seen,
right.
ever, and that's why that touched me when I heard even the version of the song that I don't like, the original version. The lyrics still touched me. I still would, and then I think I was just playing around with will I pick this song to cover at this show that's happening at this coffee shop. That it's basically an all request show,
right?
But I thought that was a creative way to do it. Tell people you request songs, I'll pick them, and then I'll
what a fun way to do it, though.
Well, it got a lot.
Exercise.
It got a lot of people out, But I messed up a lot of songs because I didn't give myself quite enough time to really like live in the songs.
Yeah, but I think if you're going to a show like that,
I mean,
you can appreciate it's going to be a little rough sometimes.
Right.
I'll go to some of these comedy shows where they'll do stand up about this week's current events. So when you go to those, there will be really funny people, but the set might be clunky because you're talking about people who spend months, maybe a year, writing certain jokes and perfecting things, and now they did it in a week. So you can't expect the whole show to be flawless. So I feel like if you go to a show where people are doing renditions that they've only been working on for a week or two, maybe less, you expect it to be a little clunky at times, but overall a fun experience.
I think I gave myself about a month.
Yeah.
But
that
still wasn't quite enough.
A month to write a song as best as you can write it sometimes is not enough, right? You can't
even just to like kind of
you can't just force it.
Cover.
Yeah.
Because you do have to spend some time with like, okay, if I can't do this song anywhere near its original key, how do I get it to a key where I can do it? Right. And then, so I mean, that was an issue with some of these songs. Man, I can't remember most of the songs that I did, but but that was a really long time ago. Yeah. I mean, memory's funny too. Like I was saying, so many of these shows that happen on the West Coast, so many of these shows, I can remember so many things. I can remember like the drive getting there. Yeah. I can remember people I talked to. I wrote down people's names that I thought were interesting. If somebody worked at the venue that I thought was really cool, or that I thought just was good at their job, I might write down their name just for that. But or I made notes in my phone of stuff like this. But funny thing about Costa Mesa, I can't remember anything about the hotel or the drive to the show. And I was sober for all of this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe it's just because certain things just stand out, right?
Yeah. Like it snowed when I was getting into Park City, Utah. It snowed at like 3 a.m. in Flagstaff. I can remember lots of stuff about like Novato, leaving Folsom, but for some reason I just can't remember hardly anything about Costa Mesa. Yeah, that's the one show where I remember almost nothing.
That's a lot of stuff to do in 13 days.
Yeah,
it was a lot
of country to see, but unfortunately, I only got like one really great picture of like just how beautiful that part of the country can be, because our 2 off days were 10.5-hour drive days. So when I was somewhere, I've since figured out, I think, that I was in Eastern Oregon. Yep. When I saw this thing that said viewpoint, 1 mile. So I pulled into this viewpoint, and that's the one picture I got that shows like just how amazingly beautiful Eastern Oregon can be.
Now you got to get somebody to come on as a photographer with you next time and just catch the things that you can't think about because you're busy doing the other things.
Well, right. I'm jealous of actually this dude that I opened for a bunch a long time ago. He recently did this run. It was like all in the Northeast. So every show is only like 2 hours away from the last one. Yeah. In the Northeast, you can play all the different.
You can hop.
Yeah. Like what, Boston to Providence is not far. Right. New York to Boston is not far. Yeah. Like all those things, you could.
Yeah, when you get to the middle and when you get to the west, it gets a little more spread out.
But yeah, because Seattle to Park City was like 13 hours. So actually, I had to. Like there was a day off, and so I just drove to a town called Burley, Idaho. Okay. And then drove 3.5 hours the next day from that town in Idaho to Park City, Utah.
Do you got any more tours lined up?
No.
We got to get you on something. I don't know how we do it, but we got to do it.
But I'm making a commitment on this podcast. Okay. To try and start self-booking again out of town. But the whole reason I kind of gave up on that is because it is almost impossible.
It's very hard, yeah.
But
I think it's been a while since I was in a band and had to worry about anything like that, but I don't know. The community sense of music, I think is struggling a little. You know, you used to have these pockets, different states, different towns, and it was easy to just swap stuff like, hey, we're trying to get up there this month. Great, we'll bring you down this month. And it's just getting a little harder to do that, which is odd in the age of social media when you have the ability to connect with people, but it's still hard to make that connection sometimes, you know. But yeah, I think you just, you know, because you're one of those, I mean, when people see you, they love your music. You just got to get in front of more people. And that's, I mean, it's easier said than done, you know. You know, one question I had for you is, I was thinking about guys like you who have these beautiful full band albums, but because you're not
play solo.
Yeah, but because you're not at a point where you can play with a full band anytime you want to, right? I think I might make it a goal for 2025. I haven't figured it out yet, but I would like to find all these guys like yourself who have great full produced albums, but don't have the opportunity to play with a full band and put on some sort of show where I can just hire a full band who's there for all of the acts. So like you'd step up to the mic. You guys have already talked about what songs they've rehearsed their stuff. Maybe there was a rehearsal beforehand, you know. Does that sound like something that would be fun? Where you could still just jump up there with your guitar, but you've got the backing band.
Yeah, and I mean, and you know, it's funny. Like for release shows, like I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll hire guys, or I get.
But I'm just
people,
thinking random shows.
Yeah, kind of a random show. But when I found something, I was kind of somewhat obligated in order to say yes to one of the times I played the state fair. It was like I had to go trio or full band to do the particular stage they were going to let me do that year, and I sold a lot more. It was like you catch a lot more people.
Yeah.
That didn't. It's a funny way to say it, but you catch a lot more people that didn't plan on liking you when you are in trio or full band fashion than when you play all by yourself. Because sometimes, there can be this little wall, and there's more visual stimulation when you got three to five guys on stage. It does help to have I do think actually it helps an audience to see the performer have somebody to interact with.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that helps. So I found that. So I have anecdotal evidence. I sold 5 records when I did 3 sets on this particular stage solo. I did 3 sets in a row. You know, in the afternoon at the state fair, I sold 5 records the first year I did it, and I played solo. The following year, I sold 13. When there was nobody there that planned on seeing me there.
Right.
They were all people.
Just random people.
Yeah, they were all people that just happened to see me there, and I sold, more than double.
Yeah. Well, I think that could be fun because, just having a great, basically like a house band to learn the material of, these 4 or 5 acts we're going to put on. Because I don't even think like a 5-piece. I think bigger than that. I think whatever we got on your record, we might need 7 or 8 people up there.
It took 7 people to recreate Quiet Life.
Yeah, because I think
even though Quiet
like
Life,
another Fort Worth guy like Hayden Miller. Hayden Miller doesn't have access to that band on his solo record.
Okay.
I know he's got his.
He's in Dead Vinyl.
Yeah, I know he's got Dead Vinyl, but have you got a chance to listen to his solo record that he put out?
I messaged him. Actually,
wonderful.
I listened to it because of y'all talking about it on this podcast,
awesome.
and that's why I listened to it.
So,
I texted him that there was one song on there that I listened to 16 times in a row.
It's a good album.
Now I can't remember the name of the song, but
so I imagine a guy being able to walk up there, on stage with a full band that's rehearsed it, all the backup vocals that you got, everything, no compromise, and just put on a phenomenal show.
I think I'm one of those dudes that people are on the fence about, as far as how nice of a person I am, or
what are you talking about?
But it's complicated.
Okay.
But because I've been around here too long, so it's eventually you have bad experiences with people, and some people are going to talk about it. So surely, I don't think I have the worst reputation, but I probably don't have the squeaky clean reputation when I stepped off the plane.
Well, I mean, if I
after high school,
but here's the thing: anybody I've ever talked to about you locally, I've never heard anything negative.
Okay, but
so it might just be in your head.
Well, I hope so. But I was going to say about Hayden, another there are a lot of them. Taylor Young is one of those guys I talk about. It's like nicest dude ever, and an amazing hang. Hayden, so nice, such a sweetheart to chat with. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how many people do you think we have around here that are in similar situations where they put these albums out, but they just don't have the means to hire a full band for every performance yet? Does Tedder have his own band?
Yeah, I
can't remember.
I only do like one accompanied show per year.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, I don't know. That would be. It's something on my list. I think 2025 I might try to make that happen, but I think the hard part is just finding a band that can handle the logistics.
I think Tedder is in the situation where I think he goes duo like often.
Yeah.
But he's made himself so available to do like patio gigs and do all these gigs where he can do.
But all of y'all can do fine solo, duo, trio. But I mean, getting to realize your live show the same you got to realize your recording. That because there's just different magic on it.
No, that's true. But also, it's like it can be funny in that Matt Mabe that played drums when we kind of tried, it's not totally accurate, but we kind of tried to recreate Quiet Live, and it took 7 people, but there also were almost 4 whole songs where Matt Mabe could not be on stage.
Right. But so I think that's okay. But I think if you're in a good venue with a good lighting system, then that's when you just dim certain lights down, bring certain lights up. It's all good, We watched, speaking of Sturgill again, it's like I got to watch him at, I don't know what it's called now, the Grand Prairie Theater, the big one. When we went, it was like Nokia Theater or something. I don't know.
Is it the one that's also been Dos Equis?
Probably. It's in Grand Prairie by the horse track, but I think it holds something like 6,000 or 7,000 people. It's a large venue. And anyway, we went there, and he's up there with a band, and he didn't even have his full horn section up there. It was just bass, keys, drums, and then he was playing guitar, right? And they're filling out. I mean, it's loud, it's rowdy. He's doing a lot of his Sturgill stuff that you're used to. And then I guess when they needed a break or something, it's like all the lights just went down, and it was just kind of him at the front of the stage with an acoustic. And somehow he's just captivating 6,000-7,000 people are just dead quiet listening to this acoustic song. And so I think those shows, it's fine. Nobody thinks about like, what's the drummer doing? Nobody thinks about that. They're just enjoying the song. And then when the drummer comes back out, we're ready to go. I think if you're standing up there on a brightly lit stage and everyone's just sitting still while you're doing your thing for a song, that's weird. But
I think I kind of worry about, like, so are you okay with, say, like 2 drummer? Are you okay with the fact that you only play on half the set?
Yeah, I think you just find the right people.
I'm going to pay you anyway.
Well, if I did it, it would just be finding a band who goes like, hey, we're trying to just support these people who never get the opportunity to play with a full band.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're kind of a hired gun like that who understands what's going on,
it takes a jazz trained bass player to play my songs.
Well, there you go. I know a couple.
No, yeah, I mean,
yeah. And so I think if you pay them, explain what's going on. I'm talking about me paying them, not you.
Right.
And just going, I just want to do this show where these couple musicians who never get to do this get to do it. So, here's the songs they've chosen. If y'all could learn them, I think we do maybe one rehearsal like a week prior or something and kind of feel out how it's going and then do the show.
I mean, just in case they hear this, Richie and Luther, you have both done great jobs of playing my songs.
There you go.
But Richie, Richie Owen, his grandmother started teaching him like Western swing on bass when he was a kid, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So he's really prepared.
I was gonna say that's another very hard style.
Yeah, he's really prepared for my. Even though
awesome.
Not all my songs are near that complicated.
It's just when it comes up.
Yeah, I have this older catalog that when Tedder and I were jamming, I was trying to improvise when he was truly improvising. I ended up kind of just doing these pet licks over and over. But he would go, do you know any old country songs? And of course I don't, or at least I don't know how to play them in a way that Matt could just shred on them.
Yeah.
But he goes, well, play one of your older songs. You have simple stuff. Because I would, if we would trade the guitar back and forth, I would play Rosemary and Thieves, or I would play the outro to what is it? Catastrophic Proportions has this thing as an outro that really is like a classical etude that I made as a way to get better at a particular technique. But and so I would show him that stuff, and he'd be like, "That's really cool, but we can't play that stuff together." And I was like, "Well, no, that's true." So then
That's pretty funny.
So he starts like suggesting like my oldest material, like I have like really old songs like "Caught Me by Surprise" and "Razor Blade Family" and like "Mama Cries," and those are all just like 4-chord songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could we take a break and talk for like 20?
Actually,
or
I was going to wrap it up. I got to start
Okay.
heading out of here anyway. But yeah, I was just about to say like, thanks for coming on and all that. But dude, it's a beautiful record, man. I'm so happy to see you got something else out. So everybody go check it out. Memoriam. Is your vinyl up for sale like on a website or something right now?
Yeah, it's all on my Bandcamp.
Okay, Bandcamp. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, get all that there. Stream it everywhere. Hey, are you doing that? Isn't there like a singer-songwriter festival coming up?
The Fort Worth one.
Yeah, are you doing that?
I pulled myself out of it.
All right,
I
fine.
was gonna do it.
We'll drop this episode after that then.
No, it can be whenever. I don't
Yeah.
mind people knowing that. I pulled myself out of it because my release show is December 14th.
That makes sense.
So I
Need a
was
little
a little
time.
worried about that if I promoted it, then that might distract. But I think I should have just done it.
That's
Actually,
live and learn.
in hindsight, I feel like it could have been helpful to do something.
It's okay. Just start booking your own shows like you were talking about. Keep it that, man. We'll see what happens. But I love it. It's another fantastic album that you put out, man. Appreciate you taking the time to come on here,
I'm
dude.
saying it on the air. I'm committed to playing more locally. I'm sorry that I didn't. So
Don't worry about it, man. I really appreciate you coming on here, dude. Thanks.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.